We go. Hey everybody, how you doing? It's me, Truth Teacher, and I'm here welcoming you to our first episode of BBC TV. And you know what BBC stands for? Yep, that's right. You got it. Beautiful brown color. So today I am honored to have a very special guest with us today. This is my cousin from Australia, Mr. We'll just call him Cousin B for today. So, we don't have anyone here yet, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and get started regardless. I guess everyone will show up eventually. So, I decided to do this live stream because of the recent events happening in our society. You know, like the whole world has been affected by this whole COVID situation. And of course, we've been struggling very much with it. But, you know, what caught my attention is the way that other societies around the world have been handling this situation, especially the first world or developed nations. And I just can't help but notice that there's a very stark difference between the way other developed nations have been handling this situation, in particular the economic aspects of it, and the way we've been handling it here in the United States. So the other day I was on the only J. Hey, J-Rod, what's up? Welcome to BBC TV. And you know what BBC stands for? That's right, beautiful brown color. All right, this is a BBC production. So as I was saying, you know, like I was on Fighter Complex's live stream the other day, and, you know, we started talking about the whole situation with COVID, the lockdown, our response to it, but in particular, you know, this whole thing about the stimulus checks. And I mentioned that in Australia, they're doing it much, much better. That when they went through their lockdown, the government was giving people basically what we got that first time around. They were getting that like on a like every 2 weeks. And, you know, people didn't believe what I told them, you know, and said, oh, well, you know, they got this military lockdown situation going on. And I'm like, nah. So, you know, I tried to get my cousin on the phone, but he was busy with business. And so I called him afterwards and we agreed to, you know, he graciously agreed to come on and to do this live stream with me so we could address the whole situation of how they handled it in Australia and how we're handling it here in the United States. So I'm going to bring my cousin in. But first, let me take this do-rag off. I've been accused by certain people of, you know, being an old man who wears a do-rag because I'm hiding a bald spot. So I'm going to remove it and show you all my big, beautiful bald spot. So, no, I'm not going bald, as you can see. So let's just clear up a couple of things. Firstly, I'm not 51 years old. I am 54 years old. All right, let's get it straight. And I don't have a bald spot. I got a big ass forehead and a deep hairline, as we all know. Yeah, he was. But without much further ado, let me get my cousin in here. I'm just going to raise up my computer a little bit so you can see some actual hair instead of looking at this forehead. Even though it's beautiful, you know, still. All right, so without much further ado, let me welcome our special guests for the evening. Mr. Shelton Watton.
Yes, sir, you know.
All right.
I can attest to the deep hairline Yeah, we're identical.
It runs in the family. What can I say, man?
Yes, man. Yes.
So, the other day I was talking to these people on, like I said, I was on a live stream
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking to these people and I was telling them that other countries, a lot of other developed countries have been handling this situation in a much better way, a much more efficient way than the way we're dealing with it in the United States.
Yeah.
So, just to give everybody your background, now, unlike me, you were born and raised in Jamaica. Which part you come from?
Well, I grew up in Kingston, but I was born on Westmoreland.
Okay, you were born in Westmoreland.
Yes, sir.
Oh, all right. I didn't know that.
Well, not that my parents were there. My mom just happened to be there. I was early. Let's put it that way.
Oh, okay. So you're just passing through.
She was down there visiting family friends, and I
Yeah.
decided when to wait. It was time to come out the oven.
All right. Let me just reposition myself here. Hold on a second. Let me turn on some lights. Hopefully this makes a difference. If not, fuck it. I'm doing the best that I can with what I got. All right, that's a little bit better. At least you can see me somewhat. So, man, the last time, God, we haven't seen each other in person. I think the last time we saw each other in person was like, what, 1974, 1975? Wow.
Yep.
So, and then you...
To the age of 10, yeah.
Okay, so you were in Jamaica until you were how old?
I left Jamaica after high school
Mm-hmm.
and moved to the US in 84.
Okay, and where were you living?
I started off in Virginia. I was staying with an aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't like Virginia very much. When you're that age, Virginia is slow and boring.
Yeah.
Didn't be right next door. So I used to hang out between LA and New York and, friends in Canada as all over the shop.
Mhm.
At that age, you don't have the anchor of responsibility yet. So I had a lot to get out of my system, and
Yeah.
I did.
Okay, so you did your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what brought you now? How long did you stay in the United States?
From 84 until 2002.
Wow, okay. So are you a US citizen?
I'm a U.S. citizen.
So you got your citizenship.
Yeah, and I'm also an Australian citizen. So I have a dual citizenship between Australia and the USA.
So you still have your Jamaican citizenship though? Yeah?
Technically, it still exists, but I have not held a Jamaican passport since the end of the 80s, early 90s.
So technically you have triple citizenship.
Yeah, but again, if I were to make that known, they would ask me to renounce one of them, and I don't want to renounce anything. I just
I see.
would
All right. So don't ask, don't tell.
There you go.
All right. So now you moved to Australia, and why did you make that move?
I had some experience operating some medical devices. I worked as a remedial massage therapist.
Yeah.
And some medical devices that I had been trained to use in the US. Within a couple of years of me being trained in that field, there was a company here that was starting to distribute those machines.
Yeah.
Once they were on the verge of about to get going, commencing their services, they said, well, we want to get an experienced technician, preferably someone who's using the machine daily, that we can as our trainer. So I took their invitation. My trainer put me onto them. I took their invitation. I came here, and then they sent me to get further training because I'd been trained to use the equipment, as a staff member. They wanted me to have the training components to have my background, and then also to train others to use the equipment as well.
So
okay, so that's how it all started.
All
No,
right.
when I came to this region, I was labeled by the Aussies, I guess, a Jamaican because I couldn't figure out my accent.
Okay.
But but I was a trainer between 2002 and 2016
hmm
for both Australia and New Zealand. So lots of traveling between both countries.
Okay. So, what was it like when you first got to Australia? Was it hard to adjust to life
No,
over there?
surprisingly, both Australia and New Zealand are British Commonwealth countries, as is
Mhm.
Jamaica.
Yeah.
So a lot of the way things are structured, including their government,
hmm
everything was a major flashback of what I'd grown up in and amongst. So there was
hmm
no culture shock. I can
So, I mean, like,
honestly say that when I
mhm.
went to America, I went through culture shock. I went through culture shock regionally.
Yeah.
But what I noticed with Australia and New Zealand, you land here and you hit the ground running because everything, it just feels like a continuation of what you've known.
All right. So, come in like Jamaica. In
Plus,
certain
they're pretty laid back. They're pretty laid back. They're chilled. They're not as high stressed and angst. So yeah, it was easy to adapt.
Okay. So you didn't, did you experience anything like, feeling out of place being like the only Jamaican or person of color around? Like, what was that like?
No, surprisingly, Australia and New Zealand are both very integrated
hmm
countries. I've met people here from every nation, not a lot of Jamaicans, but people from other Caribbean
hmm
regions. I've met people here who came here initially to study or who had a love interest here, or someone who maybe their Australian or Kiwi partner was in the States and they decided to come back to this side of the world, the South Pacific region with them. I've met people from the Bahamas, I've met people from St. Thomas, I've met people from a lot of the Central and South American countries, people from Peru, Chile, Brazil, you name it.
Yeah. Wow.
Everyone's here. So it's very multicultural from that perspective, and also multilingual, you know. But I have to say that I have not experienced any displacement or feeling of displacement or feeling out of place or feeling targeted by things like racism or anything like that. No, people here
Yeah.
are very chilled. People here are very. I'm sure you have one or two people here or there, but they know that they'll get the next bitten off. I wouldn't have to defend myself if someone said something out of line. That's one thing I've
Yeah.
noticed. If a
hmm
little old lady across the way drops her groceries, five people are on their way to help her.
Okay.
You know,
hmm
so people here still have that spirit of camaraderie. And
Yeah.
remember, this country started off with a pretty bleak history.
hmm
Australia was a British territory where they sent their prisoners. It started off as one of the big prison colonies,
Yeah.
you know. So, yeah, they've grown to become a very respected nation.
hmm
And like I said, it feels like home. I've been here now, goodness, 18, 19 years. 2021 will be 19 years.
Yeah.
I've had the fortune of traveling extensively between both countries, as
hmm
well as I lived in New Zealand for 3 years,
Oh,
between
really?
2014
hmm
through 2017,
Yeah.
doing the same work, working with a doctor's practice with,
hmm
with the device, as well as being the trainer still for,
Yeah.
at that time, the distributing company was both in Australia and New Zealand. They had
Mhm.
offices in both territories. So yeah, I've been very fortunate that way. It's been very interesting and also heartbreaking to see how the COVID crisis has been handled. You
Yeah.
know, the worst case scenario for anything that's new, that's shocking, that catches people off guard, the worst case scenario is denial.
hmm
You know, we have a few denials here too. We have a few denialists here. Don't get me wrong. You're gonna have
Yeah.
you have people that are of different thought patterns. Let's put it that way, for lack of
Yeah.
a better way of saying it. But thank goodness both here and there, those people are a minority.
Yeah.
But we have the good fortune of having a much smaller population.
Hmm.
So the few that are out and about, they're not as in your face as where you guys are. You
Yeah.
know, even though they are in the minority, it's still a ton of them.
Hmm.
You know,
Well, it's a shame
um,
that I didn't get a chance to see you when I was in Australia, because you were in Sydney, right?
I was in Sydney initially.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was in the Gold Coast when I
Mm,
came down. So that's, a little distance away from Sydney, and I
that's
wasn't
next state
there
up.
for a long time, so I couldn't get a
Yeah.
chance to come down and visit you, or vice versa.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, because we've been out of touch for such a long period of time, our paths probably crossed times over because I was in New York when I
Yeah.
first came to the US. You're based there. Like I said, I was in Sydney initially. I was in Sydney for 12 years. And then I moved to Auckland, New Zealand. I was there
Mhm.
for years and I'm back now. And I've been settled in Melbourne since 2017.
Yeah.
And of course, Melbourne was the epicenter of the COVID when it
Mhm.
really went crazy here.
So
And
you were at ground zero.
yeah, we were. Whew.
So tell me, sir, can you tell us what was it actually like, and what is, give us a timeline and explain to us, describe to us what was it really like when you first hear about this thing called COVID, and then you
Okay,
realize that, oh, we were in the Sunshine Coast. Hey, now, son, yes, that's right. I was in the Sunshine Coast.
Sunshine Coast. Yeah,
Yeah,
not. Yeah, yeah. That's definitely Queensland.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Queensland,
Queens,
exactly. In
Queensland is the state capital.
Mooloolaba, to be exact, or Mooloolaba, as they say down there.
Yeah, there's a
But,
lot of.
can you describe for us what it was like when you first heard about this thing called COVID, and then you realized that it was there in Australia? What was the experience like, and what time period are we talking about here?
Well, we heard about it from, I'd say, early to mid January. We heard about it. We heard about the whole bat in Wuhan
Mhm.
experience. Everything that everybody else was receiving. Um, and then, of course, we realized that it had made its way to Europe. And I think at that time, Italy was the
Yeah.
hot. It was really being hit badly. And of course, they have one of the largest aging populations. So
Hmm.
it was really doing a number on them. So it was, a matter of watching the news and being very concerned,
Hmm.
because immediately I got online. I looked at the history of pandemics.
Yeah.
Yes, they do indeed take place approximately every 100 years or so. But we had one before COVID. We had the SARS outbreak, which was fortunately contained very quickly, but the same family of viruses that just sort of pops up. And I think that one was called the bird flu was the other name for it.
Bird flu.
So I was in Sydney when that one came up, and immediately some people started wearing masks in public. Some did, some didn't, but we found out very quickly that it was contained, so there was no continuance of that. Um, we heard about what was happening there. We have a lot of people from different countries that have dual citizenship in Australia. Australia has a pretty small population, so we have a huge European and Asian population here. So
Yeah.
people were traveling from or returning from those countries. We have a huge Italian and Greek
Hmm.
European
Yes,
population
I
here.
heard you have a lot of Greeks there. You have
Yeah,
a lot of Lebanese too, right?
a lot of.
Lebanese,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. We have everyone here.
or as we call them, Syrian.
Yeah, we call them Syrian back home in Jamaica. Everybody that is of Middle Eastern descent is a Syrian man. But yeah, so very quickly we caught on to there were sporadic cases popping up here and there. I
Hmm.
had left Australia, I think it was the 14th or 15th of March to go to New Zealand. Even though I'm no longer officially the trainer, one of my clients insisted that I come to train them on the machine, a new machine that they had purchased. So I went over to Wellington for a few days. And upon my return, I was contacted by my job who said, "You're going to have to go into quarantine for 2 weeks." This was about the 18th of March.
Wow.
You're going went to quarantine for 2 weeks because we started to have some cases here in Melbourne. And I said,
Mhm.
okay, no problem. Within 4 or 5 days of my home quarantine, the whole city was
Wow.
put on lockdown. So the lockdown lasted from, say, the 21st, 22nd of March,
Hmm.
right through till the end of the first week in June, I think it was. So that was
Wow.
the first lockdown. That was the first lockdown. Everything seemed fine. They thought they had it contained. So everything opened back up again with full gusto. Surprise. By the second week of July, it had tripled like overnight.
Really?
So they put us into an even deeper stage of lockdown. And that,
So that first lockdown, when they had the first lockdown, exactly what was the nature of the lockdown? Like, what is it? What were the restrictions that you
I
had?
think it was a level 2 lockdown at that time.
And that
Uh,
comprises of what?
and what that said was basically stay at home, only leave your home for absolute essential things. If you need to get groceries, if you can avoid going to grocery store, have your groceries delivered. You can leave your house for up to an hour for exercise with one person from the same household.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so no public congregating, and they put a curfew in place from
Okay.
8 p.m. until like 6 a.m.
Okay. So
Yeah.
nobody going out at night, no night
So yeah,
rising.
ensure that nobody was loitering and not following, because one person or a few people don't do it, it puts everyone at risk.
Okay.
That's what was implemented, but outside of that, everything felt pretty normal. It was a lot of staying home, a lot of sitting on the couch, a lot of watching TV, a lot of weight gaining. But
Mhm.
we're working on that.
So
But
how were businesses affected?
what was that?
How were businesses affected?
Of course, businesses were, yeah, deeply affected. But what they did during that time, immediately, there were announcements on the news that small businesses were going to be given assistance,
Mm-hmm.
and the government drew up a budget plan. I mean, literally within a matter of days. And what they did is they said, okay, state all of the details of your business, the size of your business, the amount of employees that you have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what they did is they gave the businesses or the business owners a wage of their own.
Mm-hmm.
And for each employee that was casual, part-time to full-time,
Yeah.
all of those people were given an allowance of $1,200 a fortnight.
So okay, so we're here in America and people don't
Yeah.
understand that British system. Can you explain what is a fortnight?
Every 2 weeks, you are getting $1,200. So twice a month, you get a $1,200 payment. The
Wow.
people who were already on unemployment benefits, I
Mm-hmm.
think they get on or about 600 between 600 and $650 a fortnight every 2 weeks, for their unemployment benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Their unemployment benefits were doubled. So the people who were getting the job keeper were the people who had a job, who were going to be returning to work when everything opened. The
Yeah.
job keeper program paid you $1,200 a fortnight, and the job seeker, that's people who are already on unemployment,
Mm-hmm.
went from $600 or $650 per fortnight, and their payments matched the people on JobKeeper. So it leveled the playing field and just made sure that no one felt disadvantaged. Everyone could be at least covering their basics in terms of paying their rent,
Mm-hmm.
paying or juggling their bills better. And
Yeah.
able to do things like buy food, get your medications, that sort of stuff. Just sort of cover the basics. It's not a fancy, there's nothing extra there by the time you pay everything out, but at least you're not stressed out about what's going to happen if you can't keep up on your car note, pay your
Mm.
insurance, that type of thing.
Yeah. So what kind of businesses were allowed to stay open and what kind of businesses were shut down, like just closed?
Well, anything that involved foot traffic,
Mm-hmm.
was basically shut down, especially in the second lockdown. In the first one, the mask wearing was implemented.
Okay.
Things saw an improvement, but it didn't really fully contain it.
All right. So with the mask, so in order to leave, did you have to wear mask outside or only when you went into like a business or something?
Well, initially, because there was a lot of, I guess, unclear and in some instances mixed messages. You know, I even saw people wearing masks in their car. I mean, come on.
Do not take a chance.
Come on. You know, so what I would do is I would make sure that I had a mask in my pocket at all times.
Yeah.
As soon as I arrived at my destination, I would put it on as I was preparing to enter someplace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And believe me, if you tried to step in there without it, they would go, "Excuse me, sir," you know, or "Excuse me, ma'am." If you did not have a mask, because some people, you know, were
Mm,
hardcore, they would say, "Here, you can have one of these." And
mm,
you couldn't get into the businesses without them. You
mm.
know, we didn't have the full on, I guess, stages of rebellion that I've seen on the airwaves that have taken place elsewhere. Yeah, we did have one or two people who were protesting. The government is trying to take us over. You know, this is a new world order. Blah. The same conspiracy crap that you hear every and anywhere else. Believe me, we had pockets of it here, but not on the same scale. And fortunately, common sense prevailed. You know?
So did you? So you didn't have a lot of denialists, like people saying that this isn't real and all of that.
One or two, but like I said, fortunately, they were in a minority. A lot of people, the premier, as they call it, the governor of our state, was getting a lot of hit, but he
Hmm.
was getting a lot of support at the same time. You
Yeah.
know, but you can tell whichever side of that fence the message was coming from. At least you know exactly what you're dealing with. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Um, so the first lockdown was pretty much just let's all sit still for a moment and see how things respond. So
Hmm.
after about what was that, 2 months? Yeah, about 2 months, 2 months and maybe a week, we went back to business as usual. And then when they realized that it was actually a second wave, as they called it, and it was much worse than the
Really?
first one, that's when we went into a stage 4 lockdown.
Okay. So now describe what does that entail? Now, stay. You go from
Stage
stage two to
four.
stage four. What does that mean now?
So some of the same rules as before. Now the masks were mandatory.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Especially if you're entering an enclosure like a shopping center sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Um, but like I said, it became so full on that they even shut a lot of those down.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So once we got into stage 4 and they sort of implemented it gradually over the course of a few days, so as not to give some people shell shock, I guess. But again, anything that involved heavy foot traffic, Australia and New Zealand, as you know, are both pub culture nations.
Hmm.
So after work or during the day or whatever, people are always in the pubs and the bars and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
They shut them down.
Hmm.
They got government assistance. They got the JobKeeper program for their staff, the
Hmm.
employees. But with the stage 4, it became stricter. Do not travel further than 5 kilometers
Hmm.
away from home.
So it's like quarantines.
It was a deep state quarantine. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
So
hate to use the
each
term
little
state.
city or town, everybody was
But
quarantined in there.
the the curfew was re-implemented, and
Hmm.
this time for the sake of some people still needed to get out and about, truck drivers and a few things still kept going. You know what I mean? But the quarantine, the curfew was from 8 p.m. until 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the mornings. You couldn't travel casually more than 5 away from home. And if you did and you were caught, you'd be fined.
Mm.
You know,
So now,
and
how do they handle, for example, like in the very beginning, air travel in and out of the country?
In the beginning, when they realized what I guess the recycled air, was a concern in planes and enclosed air. So in the first lockdown, there was still a bit of travel. In the second lockdown, we couldn't travel interstate.
Wow, much less international.
Some states literally closed their borders one to the other because we're fine, we have low numbers, we have no numbers, and you are out of control. So keep that there. You know, um, New Zealand and Australia, you have people that are, again, work is one place, home is another because both these countries are close to each other. Or you have an Australian that's married to a Kiwi, etc. So they make their home in both places. So you had
Mm.
people who wanted to return home, etc. Some people now were put into hotel quarantine by the
Mm.
they arranged to, if you came here and you didn't have a means to, or a home to go to, say you were somebody who was coming in unprepared, unknowns, they actually put you up in a hotel. They cover the expenses. The only thing you have to do is get your own food. They put a roof over your head.
Hmm.
But what they did the first time, which was a mistake, they hired a private security firm to oversee that.
Oh yeah, you were telling me something about.
And that got a little frisky. That got a little frisky.
What do
Only
you mean?
were people leaving the hotels, leaving their rooms. They were partying between rooms, and it turns out that surveillance showed that quite a the people that were overseeing that situation were joining the party too.
So there was a little sexy time going on.
So a little sexy time, a little egg on your face, and whatever else you're into. So yeah, it was a big scandal, and they actually
that
really did
that
some.
contribute to more a rise in infection.
Of course,
Wow.
of course, because at that point they had learned how to do the tracing.
Hmm.
You know, so when they realized that, wait a minute, this is where this was, and when they started to look under the microscope, they realized, what? How could you have somebody, an independent contractor? What are these people's occupation healthy standards as opposed to, if it was a proper government run
Yeah.
operation. So a lot of things came that everybody got a lot of heat. Quite a few people did get fined very heavily. I think the fines started at $4,000 or $5,000 for regular civilians, very steep. And
Wow.
it was a business. Oh man, it was harsh. It was harsh. But they wanted you to see straight away we mean business.
Yeah.
Okay. You can do whatever you want to be reckless, but you're doing that is going to put other people at risk. And if you're going to be caught up in committing negligent acts, there are going to be penalties for it.
Hmm. Wow.
You know what I mean? So, like I said, it just was a situation where they tried to level the playing field. There's nobody crying racist or classist or this or that. No, everybody's given the same conditions.
Hmm.
And regardless of whether you're from uptown, midtown, or downtown, everybody needs to meet the same requirements.
So now you have, you said that New Zealand is very close by, and you have a lot of people that maybe they work in Australia, but they live in New Zealand, and vice versa.
Or they
So,
travel frequently, yeah, between the two countries.
so how did New Zealand handle the crisis?
New Zealand, that prime minister of theirs, I wish they could find a cloning machine,
Hmm.
clone that lady, and stick one of her in every country in the world. Overnight, there'd be world peace and things would make sense.
Hmm.
She does not play. That lady, their lockdown was even harsher than ours,
Wow.
but they got to zero numbers like that.
Really? So from
You know how the 6 week lockdown and the 12-week lockdown that we had, because our second lockdown was from July,
Mhm.
mid-July, right till the end of October, start of November. It's a long time. We come out of lockdown, you come out of lockdown and it's Christmas
Yeah.
after being home for 3 quarters of the year.
Yeah.
But New Zealand, they still do have one or two trace cases popping up here or there. But when you hear the numbers, two or three, literally two or three, I think the highest they got to in a daily count of newly reported cases was like 31.
Really.
Nothing. You know what I mean? That's minuscule. Australia, when we were full blown in the second wave, I think at one point we were hitting 500 new cases, 600 new cases a day. The
Yeah.
death toll in that, the death ratio in that was say 10
Mm-hmm.
a
Wow.
day, 7 a day, 10. I think at one point we may have heard as many as 12 people, maybe 12, 15 people. But again, devastating because of who it impacts.
Yeah.
But compared to what we were hearing about the numbers from Italy and the numbers from the UK, and then of course big bad America, woo, you know, ours were practically a drop in the bucket by comparison.
So, from a financial standpoint now, how did New Zealand handle the shutdown when they had their shutdown?
They did the same thing that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Shutdown, we're going to cover your wages and your expenses. You're not going to be left out in the cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I think their initial lockdown was a little longer than ours. It was for about 3 months. And then it was very contained. And they said, Aussies, we love you, but you're not coming into the country at the moment.
Oh, Lord.
If you want to talk to your nan or your niece or your cousin or your child, FaceTime, WhatsApp, whatever, sorry, you're not coming in here.
So people who are like, stuck in these hotels.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, okay, you're paying for food, but obviously, you only have but so much money. So
yeah,
what happened if they got in a situation where they exhausted their funds, for example?
Well, again, the governments here are so amazing, because if you come to them and you show them that you seriously and genuinely are without,
Mm-hmm.
they will give you an allowance.
Wow. So those people in the hotels got an allowance to cover their food and things like that.
And the thing is, then you have similar programs too, where people will have food drives and stuff like that. And you have the citizens or people within a region or a community pulling together and putting food stuff, emptying their own pantries to help other people in the community who didn't have as much or anything. The only thing we did go really crazy here with, and I'm sure it made international news, but that was everywhere, the toilet paper. I don't know. Why was that our first instinct? To clear the shelf of every stitch of toilet paper that was made for a 2-year period. It was just ridiculous. Like we go into a state of panic and everybody thinks about shit, literally.
Listen, when that shit happened, you know what I did? And I'm still doing it now.
What?
Hold on, I'll show you. So always in Jamaica, we take away on make fashion. So I went out. Toilet paper was gone, but napkins were still there. Listen, I get that. Hold on.
Oh my God.
Have my stack.
Well, the funny thing is, when you grow up, I guess, in a a developing country.
Yeah.
See the things that people have to do to survive. That's when you understand the true meaning of necessity is
Hmm.
the mother of invention.
Listen, I take one of these, I cut it this way, and I fold it that way, and I cut it again. And that's how I end up with one of these. Then I have my hand soap, you know, the liquid hand soap.
Yeah.
Then I went out and bought one of these.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm have my bumper clot right there, so.
Yeah, man. Necessity is the mother of invention
I have
for
my
real.
bumper clot, my Ross clot right there, so. I have my water can. So I was good. Like I was, everybody else was losing their mind. I was like, not me. Listen, man, I make my own mask. I made my own hand sanitizer, and I have my toilet paper covered. Good.
Essential list taken care of. Exactly. Yeah, but well, like I said, I think the worst thing that can happen is for people to one have that deep seated denial. Yeah, it's a safe place to go to because when you're going into the unknown, the best thing to do is to try to shut it down.
Yeah.
But coupled with the denial is the attitude.
Mhm.
Attitude is, you know what I mean? And yeah, so like I said, fortunately, I've been here, of course, being in contact with friends and relatives in the US and other places and sort of seeing how things were handled there. All I can say, I'm glad that I was in Australia for this one.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing was the unrealistic expectations, even by some of our leaders, you know, and there was a bit of it here too. Let's go into lockdown for, you know, they just what, grab a number out of the air. When
Hmm.
you look at the history of pandemics, when you look at the true history of pandemics, you're talking about minimum two, maybe 2.5 years,
Yeah.
up to 4 years. You know, so for people to think, oh, we'll go on lockdown for 6 weeks and then we'll be fine. Bull crap.
Wow.
You know, the only thing that has not evolved is our thinking. Viruses don't give a shit, and
Yeah.
they mutate. Like that, you know, viruses mutate like little buggers. You know,
So where is everything now? I mean, are you guys still on lockdown?
no, the lockdown has ended. We're back at work. At first, when we went back to work, because I work in clinical environment and work as a massage therapist. So you know, you're walking in masked up. Your client is coming in masked up. Of course, if you're in the beginning, like for example, the beauty clinics and the hairdressers and so on, the beauty clinics couldn't really do any facials because the mask had to remain on.
Yeah.
The hairdressers could continue if you know if they're cutting someone's hair, so
Hmm.
on. But the beauty clinics were on lockdown for a little longer. Then they slowly started to, as things improved, slowly started to peel that back.
So,
Um, Now I think the masks are still mandatory in certain areas. Here it is Sunday night. I'll make sure to sort of catch up on what is expected for this week because we're kept regularly informed of the changes or if something is being eradicated or re-implemented
yeah.
or implemented to a further degree and so on. They keep us regularly updated. I say Sunday, midweek, end of the week, you're told if there are any changes. Even
Hmm.
as you drive along the freeways, you know how they have the signs up, the electronic signs up?
Hmm.
They let you know this is an area with COVID, please be careful, blah, blah, blah. They announce everything everywhere,
Yeah.
you know? Um, so yeah, I think the denial needs to stop. The jumping up and down and feeling victimized about it needs to stop. And
Hmm.
then that stop having an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah.
You
So
know.
to my friends here in the chat, one suggestion they're talking about, you know, the hand sanitizer, make your
Oh
hands
yeah,
rough.
I overlooked mentioning that. Don't worry. Every
One thing
business
that you
you
can
walk
do.
in, every
Hmm?
business you walk in the door, they have an automated hand sanitizer machine put in the
Yeah.
doorway.
Yeah, I made my own hand sanitizer, and what I did, what works better than the homemade hand sanitizer? What works better than aloe vera gel?
Mm-hmm.
Just take some, go to the pharmacy and get vegetable glycerin,
Yeah, glycerin.
and you put that in. So I made my own hand sanitizer from overproof alcohol, what they call moonshine.
Uh-oh.
It's 100 and what? I forget how much proof it is.
You could have just gotten some good old Jamaican rum, man.
Well, the overproof shit, yeah. If I could get it, sure, I would use that. But what I have, we call it in America, we call it moonshine,
Moonshine, yeah.
grain alcohol, because it's 95% alcohol. Listen, when you open that thing and you smell it, it smells just like rubbing alcohol. I don't know how the hell people drink this shit.
Yeah.
But I take that, just pour it straight in like a pump spray bottle, and I put the vegetable glycerin. So when I spray it, my hands don't dry out because the glycerin attracts the moisture.
Moisture. Pulls moisture.
Yeah. So where are you guys now? Oh, you already said that. So like restaurants and everything, those are open?
Most of the restaurants stayed open, but they closed their dining rooms.
I see. So it was only takeout.
Takeaway, or you can stop in to pick it up and so on. And of course, Uber Eats and all of the food delivery services, their businesses went up 500%.
So are restaurants still closed for dine-in right now?
Most of them are. I'm supposing that probably with this week, with where we are now,
yeah,
I'm sure that some of them will start reopening the dining room. But who wants to go and sit, because it's in an enclosed space? What, you're gonna eat with a mask on? So it depends on where that is. It depends on where that is. So we'll find out. But to avoid all that mess, I've just been getting takeaway or having deliveries occasionally. You know what I mean? It has forced me to get off my duff and do some cooking on my own. It's not my favorite pastime, but what do you do?
So you've been over there like a lot of people internationally, and you've been watching the news, and you've been seeing how things unfold in the United States.
Yeah.
What is the general opinion of people in Australia when they see the situation here?
Man, it's not pretty. It has been gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, and disappointing. Because having moved to the U.S. as an immigrant, as a migrant, America has always, for so many people, represented a high bar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The one that set the standard for others to follow. And I'm telling you, we've seen that really drop down to below the basement over the course of the last 4 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And people, the good thing is that people here don't goad you on and say nasty things, as a lot of us have become accustomed to being subjected to. You know what I mean? But just in general conversation with my friends and colleagues and so on, I get asked a question, so would you move back to the US? And I said, not in a hurry.
Yeah.
They have some issues. They have some issues that have been swept under the rug, pushed aside, not prioritized. And the thing is, it's a cycle. You push something aside, it's going to come back to revisit you. You push something aside, it's just going to come back, and it comes back with interest each time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It keeps coming back as a bigger, badder, uglier monster.
Yeah.
And like I said, when you look at other first world countries, all those people participated in the exploitation of people or in the exploitation of the indigenous peoples. You know what I mean? But they've made amends. They've made their amends. They've publicly addressed it. You know what I mean? And they
Mhm.
have sort of put programs in place. And like I said, even in Australia, they've done several apologies to the Aborigine people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And here, yeah, you have some Aborigine communities that still sort of want to self isolate for the sake of tradition, I guess. But
Mhm.
for the most part, you walk around in society and you see people that you can tell that are, I guess, mixed heritage with Aborigine and other people. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That means there's a lot of intermarriage. There's a lot of, there's a
Mhm.
lot of integration taking place there. And I noticed that in New Zealand as well. New Zealand, I guess what would have been considered their indigenous people would have been the Maoris,
Yeah.
the sort of Pacific Islander Polynesian
Mhm.
people. And same thing happened. When I was in New Zealand, it was amazing. New Zealand, I saw Maoris that were married to Asians, Indians, Europeans, everyone, every face was there. And it wasn't a matter of, what color or what shade of what color you were. None of
Yeah.
that was ever an issue. You just don't hear people calling each other out based on discrimination with regards to looks or perceived class or
Mhm.
orientation. So it would be hard for me to just pluck myself up and jump back into America because you're going to go into the whirlwind vortex of that madness again.
Yeah.
And that has actually been magnified
Yeah.
on a scale now that is whew. Just seeing it on the news is scary. And what we all saw in shock take place at the Capitol,
Mhm.
yeah, yes. Yeah, there's a lot of, a lot of people don't realize that trust, it takes a while to build trust. It
Yeah.
takes a while to instill people's faith, and
Mhm.
it takes a while to earn people's respect.
Yeah.
But a second to strip all of that away. One
Mm.
second.
Listen, everybody, I'll put the link in the chat. So people come in. Let's start having a conversation. Like my cousin is here, all the way from down under. It's a wonderful opportunity to ask some questions. So when you move to Australia now, like because I have a lot of conversations with people on different
Mhm.
live streams all the time,
Yeah.
and let's be real. I mean, I love the United States. I think it's a great country, but I think that there's a hell of a lot more room for improvement.
Hey,
And, you
everywhere.
know, I think a lot of people in the United States would be shocked to find out the kind of things that people in other developed countries have and take for granted that for us here in the United States, it's like revolutionary.
Yeah.
So, could you give us some examples of like some of those things?
Well, I've seen America debate itself and politicize things that really should not be political topics at all. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I'll pull one out the bag. Healthcare.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
I've heard everybody get up in arms about universal health care and misuse the term socialism like it's a bad thing.
Hmm.
Okay? What people fear as the ugly version of socialism is the adulterated socialism. You can adulterate anything. You can adulterate democracy. We've seen that practice in the last 4 years. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Oh yeah, this exists in theory, but let's see what we can do to twist and convert it. And I mean, come on. The
Hmm.
same thing can be said about socialism. Socialism is just to make sure that everyone has equal access to the exact same things,
Hmm.
whether it be education, public transport, having your garbage picked up. All of those are within the context of socialism. You know what I mean? The
Hmm.
garbage trucks are not just going to go to the rich neighborhoods and remove their stuff. You know what I mean? It's going to go through the middle class neighborhoods and the neighborhoods that, you know, may still be on the rise in improving their situation.
Yeah.
That's what socialism is. Australia and New Zealand both have what would be considered universal or socialized medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are sick, you can go see a doctor. You have a Medicare card. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go see your doctor. You can be referred to specialists. The specialist may, you know, occur. Some costs may occur because but it will be subsidized. You know what I mean? Say if you were going to see a specialist without having a Medicare card, and you may have to pay $150, just hypothetically, to go see that person. If you have a Medicare card, your cost would probably be half that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The price that you pay for prescriptions here are the same as if you have group benefits from an employer in the States. You know, so everything is subsidized. Everything is subsidized to keep the cost down, so everyone can have access to the same thing. I have a work colleague who told me that when his wife was diagnosed with cancer,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? She was given the best of everything and it was free.
Hmm.
Again, people here still have private health cover. You know,
Yeah.
so again, that will cover anything that is either not covered or not subsidized,
Mm-hmm.
or it will give you, I don't know, carte blanche service for some things if that's what you require.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
So what do you get? What do you get with carte blanche? Do you get like happy ending?
want to be in the top suite of the bloody hotel. Not,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people will still have their little qualms and their little, you know, issues.
So no
But
happy ending. Listen, if I'm gonna pay
I
money,
forget who I'm talking to.
I want top quality treatment. If I'm gonna pay money out of my pocket, you know, if I'm going for a
Yeah,
premium.
yeah, more than once per day. So yeah, you know, it's been quite interesting to see in place when I got here,
Yeah.
and even before I became a citizen, when I was in the process of applying for my permanent residence, I was given all of that stuff at the introduction of, okay, your temporary residence, and temporary residence is being implemented, it's being worked on. We've received word from this department, bang, 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 bang. So all of the things that would put me in line to receive the same things that everybody around me is getting, I was getting from I was a temporary
Wow.
resident.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that continued through my temporary resident. I think your temporary resident application can take up to 2 years. And then I became a permanent resident. Once you're a permanent resident for, I think, up to 4 years, like the US, you can become a citizen.
Wow.
So,
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
yeah, so, you know, I'm just saying all of those things would fall in line with the word socialism, which
Mm-hmm.
has bastardized and stoked to be this ugly, hideous, heinous, scary thing. And you know, we've been conditioned to believe that the Stalins and the Castros and that's what socialism is. No, those people were extremists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those people took it to the extreme, and they used their equality of all to demean and actually diminish people. True socialism is using the level playing field to then make sure that everyone is treated equally and then to uplift people. That's what true socialism is.
So Australia is still, would you say Australia is still a democracy?
Oh yeah, it's a democratic country based on both Australia and New Zealand. Like I said, the government systems reminded me so much of what we saw in in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
You have one party that's called the Labour Party and the other one that's called the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
You know, but it's funny because when I see the views of what they call the Liberal Party here, the Liberal Party is really the Conservative Party. And the Labour Party would be akin to the Democratic Party.
Mhm.
You know, so I've had to kind of scratch my head. They call themselves liberal, but their policies are, okay, won't be voting for them. You know, because those are the people that hold on to these religious views and sort of more on the surface conservative,
Mhm.
but in practice, bullshit.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? In practice, you can start to see the cracks coming. It's phony, man.
Yeah.
You know, and okay, if you believe in a certain set of values, I respect that. I would expect that other reasonable people would respect that too. But when you take it upon yourself to start ramming those beliefs down other people's throats and saying, well, you should do this because I believe, and that I believe thing has become a big problem in America.
Yeah.
You know, there's no facts, there's no anything solid, no evidence behind it, but I believe. I believe crap. I could believe, you know, I believe I could fly. I still can't. You know, and just taking what someone says because that person is a person of prominence or the person in power can be dangerous,
Yeah.
as we have seen. Very, very dangerous. I think a lot of people are still sort of in shell shock because even a lot of people who would have been supporters of our friend
Mhm.
will go through diffusing and a bit of clarity as the fog clears.
Yeah.
Those people are going to be abjectly ashamed
Mhm.
for the rest of their lives.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I don't wish for anybody to be in that place where they feel belittled or betrayed or stupid. It's not good,
Mhm.
you know. But I've always said to people, you know, who openly, and of course, you know, we grew up in Jamaica where Jamaicans' views are very strong when it comes to certain things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And having had a chance now to be in what I call a more,
Mhm.
for lack of a better word, civilized environment. That's
Mhm.
why I think I could just up and leave like that. It would take some mental preparation, you know.
Yeah.
But for people who claim to be pro-lifers, we've seen how hypocritical that is.
Yeah.
You're not pro-lifers; you're pro-birthers.
Mhm.
Because once that child is born, then you might take it out as target practice once it's up and mobile.
Yeah.
You know, or if it's not the right color, you're gonna treat it like shit anyway.
Mhm.
So how pro-life is that? You know, and choosing whether it's somebody making a statement and it offends you and you have to say no, all lives matter, blue lives matter. Black people were never saying that only black lives matter. What Black Lives Matter was trying to state is that, oh, hold up, wait a minute, Black lives matter too. We matter also. Black people have never wanted more than, we just want equality.
Mhm.
They're so scared to allow that to happen because they must be in the back of their minds preconditioned to thinking, well, shit, if I were in those shoes and I was given equality finally, then I'd want vengeance. Black people don't have time for that. We're just trying to get through one day to the next. You know, black people are
Yeah.
not seeking revenge. You know, the uprisings that took place during, you know, the slaves burning plantations and all that stuff was just to prove a point and change the situation as it existed then. We're not a vengeful people.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's just not in our DNA to be that authoritarian, I guess is the best way to put it. You know, but yeah, it's been a bit of an eye opener, and I love America. I don't want anybody to get the wrong reading of what I'm saying. You know, I do love and have a great deal of love, respect, and admiration for America, but it's time to put on the big boy pants and grow the fuck up.
Well, So, another thing that gets me, I mean, the healthcare thing to me is really huge because, over here you have people like becoming homeless. I mean,
Yeah,
do you have that situation in Australia? Well, first of all, do you have a homeless problem in Australia?
we do have a homeless problem here, but it is based on different things. Most of the homeless situation here are for the people who have deep rooted mental issues.
Mm-hmm.
The people who either will not willingly or cannot deal with being institutionalized,
Yeah.
or their drug problem may be so. And of course, you go into an institution, there are going to be rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's always going to be somebody that wants that, needs that, should have that, and say, fuck it, I don't want that because then I have to stop doing this or I have to start doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
they don't want that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the premise of most of the homelessness that I've seen here has been because, not because services are not available,
Mm-hmm.
but people don't want to conform to the rules and regulations. Well, to get this, you have to do this. You have to show up. You have to go get counseling. You have to go to meetings. You have to do whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? But they still don't force you to do any of that.
So let me ask you something now. In terms of education,
Mm-hmm.
what is it like there in Australia? Like when we're talking about specifically now, like university level education, because
Okay.
that's another big thing that we have here in the United States. Like university to get a 4-year degree, it's so expensive, and by the time you come out,
You could
you're saddled
you
with
could be homeless. Yeah, by
yeah,
the
you
time
could be homeless by the time
you
you
could be
finish
homeless.
college.
Yeah. So well, they have a lot of different programs here. Of course, again, you have public schools and you have private schools. You know what I mean? Um, from what I've heard, the educational system between both are on par. You know what I mean? The private schools may be able to afford certain programs that may not be available at some of the public schools. But as far as the basic education itself goes, it's exactly the same.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, what they call here post secondary schools, then you have what they call a TAFE program. I can't remember what the initials stand for, but the TAFE programs fall in the guidelines of what we would consider a community college.
Yeah.
So within the community college, certain courses are offered for free,
Hmm.
especially in an industry or industries where there is a shortage. And what they do within some of those industries is not only allow you to come and do classes, but find someone for you to be an apprentice to. And that counts towards your credits, your grades.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So um one thing that's very big here outside of football and cricket and is trade jobs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trade jobs are huge. Construction here is huge.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So a lot of those are apprenticeship based. If you want to become an electrician, if you want to become this, yes, you will have to get some level of basic, accreditation. You get
Hmm.
certified courses and so on, but you're put into the workforce very quickly and in a much shorter space of time than if you're going for something more professional.
Hmm.
Okay? Now there is cost involved, but they do have a lot of things like scholarships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Quite a large percentage of our university students are an influx of particularly Asians and Indians.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And a lot of those people are in the profession, I guess because of proximity. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? We're very close to that continent.
Okay.
So yeah, um, my skill now, I work as a massage therapist. So I could come here, and even though I don't have quote unquote Australian qualifications. They will look at my level of training and tell me, okay, you are this level of this program. So therefore, not only do you have qualifications, even though they are from overseas, you have qualifications and you also have years of experience in that field.
Mm-hmm.
You have done continuing education courses, and all of the other jobs that you do are related to that field.
Mm.
So I can work without necessary, I can work and be covered and even insured by an employer. You know what I mean? In America is has become a bit over the top with being PC, and everything has to have a license for every single step and every single move along the way. You can't tie your shoelaces without having a license.
Mm.
You know, and God forbid you stop to help someone tie their laces for them. You could be sued. You could be penalized. You know,
Wow.
it's just a matter of what's important. You know what I mean? When I came here, I was coming to fulfill a need where there was no one with that experience.
Mm.
So I was treated like someone who
So you
was
could
well respected,
you write your own ticket.
and it was amazing. The problem there is that the overseas company, the manufacturer of that device, was always not happy with the distributor because sales may not be up, or this is happening, or that is happening. But in the midst of it, we've had recessions, we've had all sort of world situations that would have impacted things. But you know, a salesman is a salesman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meet the quota or else. So I worked for a company that um, provides a device that addresses soft tissue and soft tissue correction.
Oh.
Originally put into the market to treat burn scars,
Mm.
diminish burn scars, um, introduce microcirculation, pliability to the injured tissue, relax the tissue so that it can diminish pain from nerve damage,
Mm-hmm.
increase range of motion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So perfect for a massage therapist or a physiotherapist to work with. Perfect device. Makes our job so much easier. You know what I mean? But the parent company had all of these stipulations and all of these things, and if you fell shy, they'd just find another company and knock you out of the way, sort of thing. So I continued doing that job, like I said, between 2002 right through till 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, when they were changing distributors again, which would have been what, the fifth time, sixth time, I just said, you know what, I've done my time. Thanks, it's been
Yeah.
fun. Gotta go. So I have supplemented my income by working alongside most of the very clinics, salons, and specialists that I trained.
Yeah.
So it's been relatively easy. You know, people from time to time, well, you're not doing such and such anymore. Where are you now? I need somebody for this many days. Are you interested? Bang! I just walk straight in the door.
Mm.
You know, so I've been lucky that way. I've been
Mm-hmm.
very, very fortunate. You know, COVID kind of came and threw a curve on everything and everyone's situation, mine included. You know, but you adapt
Yeah.
and you just say, "This too shall pass." You know.
So you definitely had to tighten your belt a little.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm still amidst fixing and with the bills, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and say, okay, I put this one off until that. Jumping, juggling.
Mm-hmm.
But I have not become hopeless in
Yeah.
this situation. You
So
know.
we have one of our guests here, Blood Moon. She has a question here. She says, "My question is why he chose Australia instead of the US. I may have missed it if he mentioned it. So
Yeah.
just to recap."
I moved to Australia. I moved to the South Pacific region from the USA after living in the USA from 1984 until 2002. Now, I wouldn't say that I chose one or choose one over the other, but now that I've had a chance to see things from both an inside and outside perspective,
Mm-hmm.
America put on the big boy pants and grow up. America has offered me an opportunity with education and other opportunities that I would not have received in my home country
Yeah.
without much greater effort.
Hmm.
So I still consider America and parts of America home. I mean, you're my cousin. You know that most of my family is there. You know,
Most of us.
I'm
Well,
in
actually,
Australia.
we found out that most of the family is actually in Chile right now, but
Well, yeah,
that's another story.
you know, I'm here in Australia with a cat.
Mhm.
So, but no, but I would never say that America is completely off the cards or never again sort of thing. No, no, no. I don't believe in doing that. And I have a whole lot of hope, positive aspirations, and really prayers for America. Like I said, they just need to pull their finger out and get on with living.
Yeah.
Because we've been listening to the wrong people and being misled by the wrong people for the longest time. And of course, if you have primarily two people and both of them are pointing fingers at the other, of course, it's going to become a muddled, confused message.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But people need to start thinking for themselves. People need to get out and travel. So many Americans don't go more than 50 miles out of their hometown. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Travel exposes you to the reality of the world and helps you see your strengths and your shortcomings through a completely different different lens.
Hmm.
you know and I would say that my life has been, wow, enriched by having had a chance to move around so much. I'm obviously the gypsy of
Yeah.
my immediate family circle, but my younger sister is not far behind.
Hmm.
She's been an exchange student. She now speaks, good lord, 5, 6 languages, I think, some crazy like that. So get out and get exposed, man. The good thing is that the younger generation have been doing more and more and more of that. The problem
Hmm.
is people that are our age and older who weren't interested.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, America has a lot of great things going for it, but they need to drop the thinking that they're the dominating force and they're the only ones that matter or they're only ones that know, because that goes to show you how deep rooted your denial and your shortcomings are.
Hmm.
When you don't look at or listen to what else is going on out there, you not only fall behind in your intellect, you fall behind in your technology, you
Hmm.
fall behind in so many things. There we can sit back and say, well, China this and China that and China that. China sends students everywhere in the world.
Mm.
China has people everywhere. When the slave trade ended, the Chinese came in as the low income wage earners.
Yeah. That's
But they
true. Chinese are all over the Caribbean.
very strategic. The Chinese and the Indians were abused, man.
Yeah.
But they strategically put themselves together and used means of implementing themselves and strengthening their, not just their family, but their communities. And then when they start to thrive, then people hate on them. They're coming here to take over. No, have you seen the knuckle bearing work that these people have done? You know,
Hmm.
America, of course, everyone wants to come to America on some level or on some stage, but the immigrants will come to that country and do jobs that Americans would thumb their noses at.
Yeah.
But when you start seeing them in larger numbers, oh, they're here to take our jobs. Please, what job? The ones that you have not wanted to do for the last 200 years? Man, get off.
So, being someone that you've seen an immigrant, right?
Yeah.
Having had experience living in the United States and living in Australia, from an immigrant point of view, would you say that America is overrated?
I hate to say that in those terms, but it gets a bit stringent. But for lack of making it more wordy, yes, very terribly overrated. And that's because of arrogance.
Hmm.
That's
So do you
because
think it's because? So
when
do you
you have
think that?
someone
Mhm.
who talk about we need people here from Norway, not the shithole countries. Have you spent a moment observing some of the brilliance that's come out of those shithole countries, including people who have served in American government?
Mhm.
At the moment, we have a vice president who is got Jamaican family heritage. Colin Powell, who worked under George Bush, George W., has Jamaican heritage, and the list goes on and on. When it
Yeah.
comes to doctors, scientists, mathematicians, a lot of these people came from shithole countries,
Mhm.
but their families put the effort into getting them educated, and these people could, get to a point of holding very vital, important roles in leadership.
Yeah.
You know, I heard a lot of people recently saying all sorts of stuff about the video that Arnold Schwarzenegger made.
Mhm.
That's the ultimate example of what an immigrant who shows up with a suitcase and $20 in his pocket can achieve.
Mhm.
Okay, he happens to be white, but an immigrant is an immigrant.
Yeah.
All he has to do is open his mouth, and it's like, whoa, where the hell are you from?
So, from your point of view, would you say that people coming from quote unquote third world countries or developing nations, like Jamaica, that maybe we should broaden our horizons when it comes to considering places where we can seek more opportunity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that most people would choose America and Canada first because they are close to home. That's why they choose them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's opportunity right next door. You know what I mean? And at a moment's notice, I can get back home because most of them are still supporting family or have some
Yeah.
extension why they don't want to cut ties. Like I said, not everybody's a gypsy like me, and I don't expect them to be.
Mm-hmm.
But um, would I come back to America? I'm not saying no. I'm not saying never, but not right now. Not this second,
Yeah.
because
So,
I have been in an environment that is peaceful, that is sensible, not perfect. Don't get me wrong, not perfect, but there's plenty you can find to criticize. But it's a matter of how you look, at your glass. Is it half full? Is it half empty? Depending on your perspective, it could be the best or the worst.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But America has been pumped up first and mostly by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, in presenting that picture, has made themselves very appealing to outsiders to want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, right here in Australia, I've met people from Chile, Peru, Argentina, Brazil, you know what I mean? And this is both here and in New Zealand as well. So
Yeah.
I've
So
met
they,
people, and
they,
like I said, in
they,
New
they
Zealand,
get the dose of spice.
what's that?
They get the dose of spice.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And like I said, it's been a very fulfilling experience.
Mm-hmm.
Very fulfilling experience. I see a question here about the vaccine.
Yeah.
Okay, so the vaccines are going to be rolled out at no cost.
Mm.
Um, of course, we've had all of the feedback that you guys have had about it's going to alter your DNA. And blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. I understand that there are concerns where vaccines are. Okay, but if it wasn't for vaccines, it would be about the world population would be about a third of what it is now. We have used vaccines from the beginning of time to combat rubella, malaria, polio, etc., 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 etc. Okay? Those things were wiping out millions of people in the past. We now have most of those things under control.
Mm.
Okay? Australia had started developing their own vaccine.
Really?
I'm not sure. I told Australia, New Zealand, but they don't brag about it.
Mm-hmm.
What I've noticed with America, especially under, you know, the last 4 years, a lot of chest beating
Yeah.
and a lot of puffed up, arrogance. Cut that crap. Go sit on the toilet and get it out of your system. You know, Good God. Australia and New Zealand were both individually and collectively working on a vaccine.
Okay.
Um, okay, the UK got one put through, and you know, it has obviously been accepted and approved. And then America came through with two.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what Australia is going to do is get access to all of those. Obviously, they've decided that it's more convenient to not just rely on the one that needs to be within a very fixed temperature controlled environment.
Yeah.
You know, so they have opted to go for getting the other ones as well. Because
Mm.
in some remote communities, you may not have access to, unless it's a vehicle that's temperature controlled, you may not have access if you're going out into the outback in some communities to get to the Aboriginal and other communities who, by the way, choose to live in those harsh environments. No one has forced them. Okay, just like you still have Native Americans and reservations, et cetera, et cetera. You know, some people still want to stay away from the madness of modern living and maintain their sanity. And I tell you what, the older I get, the more I go, you know what? I think these people are onto something.
Well, listen. I have to be honest. When I think about the vaccine, I'm afraid. I'm not gonna lie, I'm afraid because like as Damilus is saying here in the chat,
Yeah,
here in the United States, there's been a long history of people, quote unquote, people of color, being the forefront of experimentation.
yeah, yeah,
We had that in with the Puerto Rican community, both here in
yep,
the United States and on the island.
yep.
So we do have this
There's a hesitance. Yeah, I get,
hesitancy because
I
we
get,
don't trust the system.
I get it.
And
And
I have to really be honest. I'm one of those people that I'm very
when,
reticent. Let me put it this way. I don't want to be the first one that take it.
thank you.
No.
No, no, yeah, yeah. It's just like, put it this way. What I jokingly say this, but it's serious. I tell people when the new iPhone comes out, you don't want to get the first one off the press because you know in 4 months, 6 months time they're gonna come up with the improved version of it and we've worked out all the kinks and all of the short you know the shortfall
Yeah.
areas. You know, okay, fine. Watch what happens around you, watch what happens in your community around you, and then so on and so forth, and then get in line to get the bloody thing. Because if we don't get the vaccine, then we're going to be the ones who could continue to be at risk ourselves and be the ones that continue to further put other people at risk.
Yeah.
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean? And we may not be able to travel without getting the vaccine.
yeah. I mean, it for me, it's a catch-22 because I'm going to be entering in the health profession very
Mm.
soon.
Oh, them I go joke you. Don't worry.
Listen, me run go buy my mask already. Me have one of them that full face coverage with HEPA 11 filter.
If them have to hold you down, you're going to get the needle.
Listen, I'm hoping not.
I'm not a fan of needles. I'm not a fan of blood work. I'm not a fan of any of that stuff. Believe me, it's something that I've had a phobia against from childhood.
Yeah,
You know, but and I completely get where people are coming from talking about how we have been this, we have been that. But yeah, back then there was a lack of ability or access to class action lawsuit.
yeah,
Okay. Fortunately, we live in a time where that shit is real. Okay.
yeah,
So, yeah, I get where people are coming from, but I mean, come on. Vaccines have done a lot of good. Not when there were bad intentions behind it, but vaccines have done more good than harm.
I'm just Like I said, I don't want to buy the first iPhone, you know? And as Damelu said again, you know, like usually, you know, all right. So here's the thing. My big concern with this thing, right?
Yeah.
That usually when you have a vaccine, it takes years for them to develop and test.
Yep.
And these things are coming out in less than a year.
Yep.
So, and especially when I hear about them having in the like that work with your RNA, you know, like
Yeah. I get out now.
You know what I'm saying?
This is not the first coronavirus that mankind has been exposed to. Even the common cold and flu are a version, a less severe and a lower rate of infection coronavirus. Okay. So they already know what a coronavirus is. They have a flu shot that's been around for how long? So they already have the foundation building blocks for a coronavirus. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like it's completely out of their scope of knowledge. It's just that, okay, we're going to have to find a way to use what we have and fine tune it to fit this situation more accurately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Thank God this is not the first coronavirus ever, you know, but this one, the rate of infection, you know, yeah, the recovery rate has surprisingly, in some cases, been quite high.
Yeah.
But you can't just sit back and go, well, since we have a relatively good recovery rate, then just let it do its thing. Because what about the targeted groups that don't fare so well? You know, I mean, this past Thanksgiving and Christmas, how many families, the ones that did muster up the guts to go travel and gather and so on and so forth, how many of them would have been missing a loved one, if not more than one, a few or several loved ones from the table?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For me to be here and hear about the death rate over there, it is mind numbing. And I've had two people that I consider family, you know, that I've known all my life. They were older, you know, but I have a cousin who's his wife and his mom both COVID together, went into the hospital. Only the wife came out. Her mother passed away. You know what I mean? I have another uncle whose wife, after my uncle passed about 2 years ago, the wife decided she wanted to downsize and make her life a little bit more manageable. Plus, she's still going through the grieving process of losing her husband of, good Lord, I think they were married close to 65, 70 years. You know what I mean? And she moved into a nursing facility, and within 2.5, 3 months of making that big change and thinking that she can look forward to what's left of her life, bang, gone.
Damn.
You know what I mean? One of my school friends and his partner, both based in New York, came down with COVID. Thank goodness they recovered. You know what I mean? But as you find out more and more and more, and I still have people, because they either have not been personally you know, affected by it, or they don't know of anyone that they're closely linked or related to having had it. It's okay for them to just throw their hands up arbitrarily and says, oh, it's a hoax, it's not real, it's this, I don't need to be hit by a car to be told about how fucked up that is. Okay? Yeah. I can see what it did to somebody else and go, I think I'll pass on that experience. Thank you. You know, so people need to stop just basing their opinion and what they project just from their perspective. None of us are here just based on our perspective. We can have our opinion, but that doesn't make it universal law for everybody else. And, you know, the problem with mankind is we don't always make sure that the brain is engaged before putting mouth into gear, man.
Yeah.
Plenty of folks out there got the verbal diarrhea bad.
So let me ask you something, because Morena just posted something here that I heard of months back, but maybe since you're in Australia and you're like outside of the propaganda loop here in the US, maybe you heard something about it. Have
Yep.
you heard anything about the vaccines that they made in Africa?
Yeah, there are quite a few African countries. I think there was, I listened to a video message by one doctor who I think was from Rwanda, another one from Nigeria, and another one from several places, because Africa, as you know, is several countries. But again, because people have been given the negative image of Africa, and
Hmm.
everybody thinks that everybody's running away from lions.
Hmm.
Africa has some of the most brilliant doctors on the planet. A lot of them are doctors who have been trained either in their own country and have done continuing education and seminars in the UK, the US. These people don't just sit dormant in their own countries. They go out and get as much knowledge and information so that they can help the community, the country, and the continent at large.
Hmm.
That's the problem. That's where America's downfall is. As long as I'm all right, fuck everybody else.
Well,
That has to stop.
yeah, I have a question here for Blood Moon. She just made this comment. Blood Moon, did your mom pass away from COVID when she was in the nursing home? Because that's another. Well, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know of
So
anywhere in the world where
homes
nursing homes is a good experience.
and nursing homes as well, even the nicest of them, stopped allowing visitors. What
Yeah,
they would have to do is get the patrons out of their rooms or wherever they were and get them to come to the window, and you can't communicate through a pane of glass. That's like viewing an animal at the zoo.
yeah,
Who And especially if you have someone who's disoriented or in any stage of, dementia, Alzheimer's, and so on, you can't tell that person, oh, you have a visitor. Let's get you ready for your visitor. And then you go and there's no visitor. They're standing there in front of a plate glass. What, to stand and wave at somebody and then
hmm,
turn around in 30 seconds to a minute and go right back where you dug him up from? It's heinous. It's heinous. And like I said, there's a lot of pain in the world right now because of this division. Mankind, regardless of how crazy we are and how selfish we are, we are communal. We are a communal species. That's
yeah.
why we live in communities. We
Well,
belong in
Blood,
a country.
Blood Moon, I'm really sorry to hear what happened to your mom.
Yeah,
Cause
sorry to hear about that.
like I went through, like Shelton, like I went through a lot with my mom when she was in
Yeah,
the nursing home, and that's unless you go through it, unless you have a loved one that's been in that kind of situation,
yeah,
it's you don't know what it's like to have to really be on top of these people like white on rice to make sure that your
yeah,
loved ones get the kind of care that they need. So
yeah, yeah.
that's
Only when you're
my
in those shoes.
Hmm?
Only when you're in those shoes,
Yeah.
you you get a true picture of what it's like. And
Hmm.
it's there's some things, and this is why it's wrong for people to make assumptions. Oh, that isn't real. Oh, is it? Like I said, you have not had the experience. You should be the last person to be that opinionated about something. You know what I mean? People are too quick to want to have the final say in something that they know very little or nothing about.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I'm telling my age now, but I think the irresponsibility of social media, and
Hmm.
God help us, that awful genre of television programming that they call reality TV
Yeah.
has brought out the absolute, just worse in atrocious human behavior. You
Yeah.
know, the more tacky and outrageous you are, the higher the ratings, and the more money you get paid, and you're made a celebrity and a role model for who?
Hmm.
You know, I really I find it abhorrent that what we knew as quality entertainment has changed for the worse, and I think it has forever. You know, people
Yeah.
continue to complain about their freedom of speech being attacked. No, it's not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, you can still have your freedom of speech, but you can't speak recklessly and irresponsibly. You know, freedom of speech could be me walking past somebody and saying, "I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to kill you." There's consequences to that.
Hmm.
You know, if
And
you,
I think that's the problem here in the United States is that we don't understand that there's that fine line
yeah,
between, yes, you are free to express yourself, but there has to be moments when you have to use wisdom and consider what are the consequences of your words.
yeah.
We don't really fully wrap our heads around that part of it yet.
The thing is, you know, it's to be conscious enough to be aware that for every action, there's a reaction,
Hmm.
and be aware that the reaction may not be what you bargained for. You know, so you have to check which end of the pool you're diving in before you dive in. You know, you can jump into the deep end safely, but if you do the same thing diving into the shallow end, you break your neck.
Yeah.
You know, so yes, my dear sir.
But it's I'm glad that you were able to come on here and talk to us because like I said, I'm just really shocked and disappointed the way I see things unfolding in
Yeah,
response to this situation. And what makes me so mad is you sit down, right, and you see the way a lot of nations around the world are taking care of their citizens in this crisis,
yeah,
even you know financially,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then you see what we have here, and just the amount of things that other people take for granted. I mean, when I visited Australia, I loved it there. The only thing, it come in like Jamaica.
yeah.
I
Very,
was, because I was in Queensland, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
even like the style of the houses and everything, it coming in just like Jamaica, but only thing is so damn far.
yeah,
You know? I mean, I know say if I can get I can saltfish,
yeah. A
Me need
14-hour
saltfish.
ride, a 14-hour plane ride from West Coast USA is nothing to shake a stick at. You know,
No.
when I had to go home for my mom's funeral, I flew from Sydney, 14 hours to Los Angeles, caught a connecting flight from Los Angeles to Miami. That's what, another 4.5, 5 hours, something like that. And then from Miami to Jamaica, which is about an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
So you do the math. That's a
Yeah.
lot of time, you know?
Listen, when I went, it was me and Lily, who's here in the chat somewhere.
Hmm.
We went. Listen, when I tell you, so when I come off of the plane, ankle them big like this,
Yeah, yeah.
like
That
ankle
breadfruit
on the
ankle.
front feet, like Jesus Christ, man. It took like a day for the swelling to go down. So that's no joke. I mean, I really want to go back and visit again, but this time will know to just like get up and walk around a little bit.
Have
You know,
to. You have to.
yeah, I didn't know about that. You know,
Well, just living proof that by nature we are not designed to be several thousand feet in the air, hundreds of thousand feet in the air. Because then you're in a vacuum sealed environment. You know what I mean? So again, we don't know what that's doing to us. Our circulation is what's in by that, obviously. So it goes to give you an idea of what happens to your lymphatic system. For
hmm
you to get that pooling in the ankles. Even some people, when they fly, they can't get their rings off their fingers.
yeah,
You know, the feet and the hands. And some people, their face. So the face, the feet, and the hands just balloon out, you know?
yeah,
But getting up, moving around, finding simple hand exercises to do during your course of travel. And then, of course, making sure that you properly debrief from it once you get to your
yeah,
destination. Most important thing while you're flying long distances is to stay hydrated, which most people don't do. Stay
yeah.
hydrated and move around. Drink lots of water and move around.
My strategy is always to just like get a window seat and go to sleep. you know, and that usually works for me on most long trips. Like I'm used to like 10-hour trips. Like when
Yeah,
I go to Egypt is
yeah,
like 10 hours,
yeah,
and that works. But when you start getting now like 14, 15,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't count on that.
And not only are you disoriented by the amount of travel time, you leave America on Wednesday, and when you arrive in Australia, it's Friday
Yeah.
because Australia is 16 hours ahead. So you're already missing the day that you're traveling to the destination you're going through. You get there, you're like, I left on Wednesday. Why is it Friday? when you return to America, you arrive earlier in the same day that you left.
Yeah.
So if you leave on the same Wednesday, you get back earlier in the Wednesday. So it's a bit to get your head around.
Yeah.
We are in the midst of our summer right now. It's been a very mild, unusual summer. The sun is coming out now at what 1:45 in the afternoon.
Hmm.
Usually by this time into midsummer, we're having forest fires and problems like that. But
Hmm.
you know, it's funny. Um, we saw how when the flying slowed down and when the pollution slowed down because so many people were on lockdown and companies closed, that the ozone started to repair itself, the air quality
Really?
started to improve. The waterways, even in Italy and other places, the pollution had stopped because everything had shut down. You know what I mean? The dolphins were going back into waterways where they stayed away from because of mankind's activity. You know, that's so now usually Australia's fires and bushfires have gotten worse and worse and worse and worse during the 18, 19 years I've been here.
Hmm.
This year has been the mildest summer. I'm
So then
talking about
I mean
during the
that,
daytime, it's pleasant, but not hot. Every now and then you
yeah,
get a hot day coupled with humidity. But then at nighttime, you need a sweater or a jumper or a little jacket or something because the nighttime is so cool. You're like, we're in summer. It's
hmm,
supposed to be burning up, you know. But yeah, it's been interesting. And I'm pretty sure that yeah, the global warming thing is throwing things all over the shop. You know, we can tell by the amount of fires, we can tell by the amount of hurricanes that pass through the whole Central Caribbean, Central American basin
yeah,
heading towards the USA this year. I mean, we've never had that many hurricanes pass through a region in such a short space of time.
yeah.
You know, so obviously mankind sitting back, being still, and observing nature trying to sort itself out. But
Hmm.
it goes to show the little time that we sat still, we're capable of fixing this thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's a matter of not again denial.
Hmm.
Global warming, oh, that's a hoax too. You know, oh Jesus.
Well, well, like I said, I'm really glad that you could be with us today to talk because I think Americans, if we were more aware of how good things could be,
Yeah,
it would make a world of difference, because we're here in this little bubble and we think that we're the be all and the end all.
yeah,
And yes, in comparison to a lot of countries, um, we have a higher standard of living, most definitely.
yeah,
But
yeah.
when you compare us to other developed nations,
There's
I
a
mean,
lot of shortfall. There's a lot of shortfall.
it's like we're the third world nation of the first world nations.
When I first came here in 2002, cell phones were just catching on in America. You know, business people had them and that
Yeah.
sort of. So the same 2002 that I'm leaving America now, I
Hmm.
realized that people had mobile phones, you know, but it was still a luxury item at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I got to Australia, everyone, school kids at the bus stop had cell phones.
Wow.
At that time, I had never even heard of MMS and texting.
Hmm.
Been here for a long time. Again, a lot of that technology comes from China. Australia is right next door to China. So, of course, the technology is going to, you know, come along this way very quickly. But it
Yeah.
just made me realize that coming from America, whoa, there are people out there that are way ahead. in a lot of things, in a lot of things. And America is still an amazing place, but we just need to get rid of what we have known to be the traditional powers that be, for diversity to not be a curse word
Yeah.
or something that people rolls their eyes at. You know what I mean? The condemnation that's taken place in seeing the true equality of people of color and people of other nationalities and cultures and so on. It has to stop, man. It has to stop.
Yeah.
I think what has happened, this is just my opinion, but my dad and a few other people that have had this conversation, it's like the dinosaur of white supremacy realized that this was its last chance, its last stand.
Yeah, you
And
see,
when any animal is facing extinction,
Yeah.
it's gonna lose its mind. It's going to act crazy. And I think that's what we've seen.
Mm.
So I think it's a matter of everything dying down, things settling down. Hopefully, we're going to see that dinosaur truly die off, because it's going to linger for a minute, when the ugly dragon rears its head and carries on. But that's going to be a dwindling set of circumstances, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Because again, common sense prevailed, and we've seen that most people that give a damn and most people that have some common sense have just said no. Because a lot of the voters that came out were young people who come from families that are traditionally, maintaining the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw, kids coming out and reporting that their parents were part of the Capitol. I said, well, that's going to change the dynamic of the next family gathering, That's going to ruin next year's Christmas for sure, But hey, people are willing to stick their neck, take a stand, believe is right.
Yeah.
That's very, very honorable.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
the good news is that I think things are changing. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's very encouraging when you see everything raising its ugly head.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that we do have to give credit where credit is due, and admit the fact that things are changing. I mean, it's not perfect, but you have to start somewhere,
Yeah. And mankind too, we are not a species. As much as we want more, and as much as we want the next thing, and as long as things are trending or familiar, but when we start to change the context of what we're accustomed to, it freaks most of us out. We're very resistant to change. We don't like to admit that, but we're very resistant to change.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, we're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
The good, encouraging thing is that common sense prevailed, even though, unfortunately, the number of people who think on the contrary are surprisingly a large amount of people, but they are still a minority.
Yeah. So we have a question for you here. Somebody asked, Blood Moon asked if you ever met any Aborigines.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know Aborigine people. I've been to Aboriginal communities, and I know Aboriginal families that live within the city. Like I said, you'll find Aborigines who are more traditionalists.
Yeah.
They want to sort of live an isolated life, but at the same time, their kids will want to go and be in the city because they want to be educated. They want to sort of, have a different environment, and they're free to do that. So yes, I've met a lot of Aboriginal people. I've met people who are what they call mixed Aboriginals, people who are partial Aboriginal because they may have some other bloodline or bloodlines running through their family.
Yeah. So we have somebody here that says, in regards to all the things that we've been talking about, that Australia has a fraction of the population of the US, so there's no comparison possible. What would you say to that?
Don't compare population size to population size. Look at the number and then the ratio of those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you tell the number. You don't just go, well, America has 300 and what is it, 350 million people, and Australia has, I think, 26, 27 million people. Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket by comparison. But if you look at the ratio of people that are affected, it gives you the percentage.
So now, the thing that I think you have to look at, right? Because we've been talking about the way Australia's government
Mm-hmm.
provides a safety net for the people and
Yeah.
provides for them. So now, okay, the United States has a much bigger population, obviously,
Mhm.
but at the same time, we also have a much bigger budget.
Yeah.
So I think the thing that you have to look at really is what is the percentage of the budget that each country chooses to spend on its citizens.
That's it. America has a much bigger population. America has a bigger working and tax paying population. So America would have a much bigger budget. America also has, as probably say, more billionaires than Australia has. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's one or two here, but again, a drop in the bucket by comparison. You know what I mean? And there are plenty of Aussies who are billionaires in America.
Yeah,
The owners of Fox News, as an example.
really?
Don't get me started. That Murdoch family,
They're Australian?
they're Australian.
Wow. Hmm. So
Popeyes and all.
what percentage of Australia's, but I mean, like, for example, does Australia have a military?
Oh, of course.
And what percentage of the,
Australia's military, New Zealand's military are allies to America.
okay.
Yeah.
But now what percentage of the budget goes towards the military as versus, like social programs?
Good question. I don't know if I'd be the best source for the breakdown of those numbers, but I would say that they definitely would have it more evenly proportioned. America likes the idea of big guns, lots of guns. You know what I mean? In Australia, private citizens don't own guns. People that hunt and people that are in the armed forces or people that are in the police force are the people with the guns. Australia actually had a gun buyback program many years ago. They got the guns off of the street and the crime level dropped overnight.
Really?
Yeah. Australia and New Zealand gun restriction laws are very, very strict. Yeah, you'll hear of one or two black market situations here or there that pop up every now and then, but it's the gun control is very much contained. The right to bear arms is not a right here. It's a privilege. You know what I mean? And if I've known people I had a client that used to walk in and put his shotgun in the corner because he couldn't leave it in the back of his open truck.
Yeah.
When he came in for treatment. So yeah, I've known gun owners, I've seen gun owners, but we don't have the gun problems and the crime problems that are gun related crime problems that the US has, because there's better control of guns. And the thing is, guns don't kill people.
Yeah.
Guns in the wrong hands kill people.
Mm-hmm.
You can't blame the gun. The car doesn't drive itself off the cliff. The reckless driver or the intoxicated driver is what caused that. So It all boils down to the person. It all boils down to the people. Tax the rich and the corporations, Demilis, I'm with you on that one.
So in Australia, do the corporations and the upper class, do they pay their fair share of taxes?
Oh, yes. The cost of living in Australia is relatively high, but the minimum wage is also very high.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You can have people that especially if they're in a situation where they're just contributing to a household, like someone who lives with their parents or has a roommate or even college and university students, they're not struggling to make ends meet. They can do so relatively comfortably. Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be a smooth sail. Don't want anybody to get that out of context. But I mean, come on. America can afford to pay people way better minimum wages.
So in other words, people in Australia, they have like a living wage. That's a thing.
Minimum wage here is, I think, $18, $20
Wow.
per hour.
So now with $18 and $20 an hour,
Yeah.
can you
And
afford to have your own
start in a
apartment?
job because the jobs are competitive now because, okay, if everybody's paying that, some of them really want to attract good people. So what may be an $18 job, they may be offering you 22 or 25 to start.
Yeah.
You know, so it gets competitive and that makes it better for the person who's on the receiving end of that.
hmm So now with that minimum wage, can you afford to have like a small apartment?
Yeah, again, yeah. But I would recommend that if you're in a lower income bracket, considering having a flatmate, roommate, housemate would be a better way to go because it'll make it better for both of you. That way
Okay.
you can also afford to have a car and
hmm
put payments in it and pay your car registration, your insurance, and you know what I mean? Because by the time you start to get into the details and the structure, it just becomes more complicated.
So Blood Moon says something now about small companies. So like in Australia, how are small companies able to provide, a minimum wage that's on that level?
Well, small companies, meaning I've worked, for example, in most of the clinical or beauty industry sort of environment. Okay. And
Mhm.
I worked for one lady where I was her only staff member.
Yeah.
And my beginning wage was $30 an hour
Wow. So how were they able to do that?
because she had the clientele to back it up. And she had an influx of ongoing clientele, and she made sure to advertise. There was sidewalk traffic. You know, you put up your little A-frame to
hmm
advertise who you are, what you are, where you are. She did a lot of online marketing, and she made sure to keep sticking her neck out there. Sometimes what she did is we'd have outreach programs. We saw a lady who was a victim of domestic abuse
hmm
on our version of a current affair here. And this lady was left with severe scarring in the face from the attack from her ex-husband.
Wow.
I called the producer of the show and said, look, I do this treatment where we can diminish scar treatments so that
Mhm.
it's not the first thing she sees every time she stands up in front of a mirror. I
Yeah.
would like you to send that lady to us and we'll do her treatment at no cost. And the guy
Wow.
was, what? So within 30 minutes of making that offer, the phone rang, it was her. She came in and she had treatments, and her scars were significantly reduced over a course of about 10, 12 treatments.
hmm
So when she got up and she put makeup on, what were once very obvious scars had diminished significantly and now look like expression lines.
Yeah.
You know, so you sort of, I think what happens in business is people are so busy clawing for their own, clawing for their own. We act like crabs in a bucket. You know, you have a bunch of crabs in a bucket. The harder they claw with their own selfish intention in mind, the more they sink to the bottom of the bucket.
So could part of the equation be that Australia just has a lower cost of living?
Higher cost of living, higher
Really?
cost of houses here start at about 400,000, and those are in areas that you don't want to live. The nicer areas, you're talking about 500, 500. What you and I would consider a home, say I'm going to use Atlanta as an example, a house that would cost 150,000 in Atlanta, which would be a very nice house.
hmm
Okay, that's a $500,000 house here.
Wow.
So real estate is costly. You know what I mean? The cost of food and so on is higher than what you guys are accustomed to paying. But we have low cost for transport, we have low cost for the services, the things that are quote unquote the scary socialized programs. People can have access to those things without having to deal with nosebleed situations.
Wow.
So it's a matter of, I don't know. Like I said, I moved here as a foreigner too. But what I noticed is that I walked into a very finely tuned, very well thought out machine.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And it's based on making sure that everyone is comfortable and everyone is able to make strides for advancement.
Wow.
So we need to become more educated, I think. Every time I watch these YouTube clips of a certain group of folks and the way they view socialism, these people are just going to make us into socialists. Bloody hell. Do a thorough study on the word and find out what it really means before you just use it blindly and come with some really ridiculous angle on what it isn't.
And the funny thing about it is the people that need it the most is the ones that's crying
the
most.
Absolutely. The ones who would benefit the most are the ones who downcry, deny, and actually sabotage their own situation.
Wow.
So it's crazy.
Man. So somebody asked, like, do you rent or do you pay your rent weekly or monthly?
We pay our rent weekly, or you can make arrangements to pay your rent fortnightly, because some people don't get paid until every 2 weeks. So when you're going into your situation, you discuss that up front and say, well, yes, we're paying this much per week, but I get paid fortnightly. I'd like to make arrangements to make my rent payments.
Once again, fortnight is like every other week.
Every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, yeah.
Okay. Wow. Damn, it looked like I need to bring my ass to Australia. How much do they pay for ultrasound technicians out there?
You'd get good money. You'd get good money.
Oh God! But let me tell you something, man. It's like I said, for me, I guess the thing that would be holding me back from doing something, because listen, when I went to Australia, I was like, damn, I really need to be. I don't want the part where it get cold. Let me stay in Queensland. Tropical. But
we do have reverse seasons to what you guys are accustomed to. So our summer is December, January and February. Our autumn, of course, is March, April, May.
Yeah.
Our winter is June, July, and August, and then our spring is September, October, November.
So now, how cold does it get in the winter time down there?
It's cold. It's cold. We can rival your temperatures, not consistently though, because Australia is mostly arid desert. But as you know, the desert can freeze easily.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, so a lot of internal Australia is mostly desert habitat. Most of Australia's industries as well as residential makeup is coastal.
Yeah.
So the entire country.
Okay.
The good thing about the winters is that you don't get situations like ice and snow. Yeah, okay. It gets to the temperatures that could create that, but we don't have the precipitation to create that. Okay. However, in mountain regions and in certain areas, what they've done is people go to the snow. So if you want to go skiing and stuff, you can do that here, but you have to go to it. The snow doesn't come to you.
So would Queensland come in more like Florida here?
Queensland is the Florida of Australia.
All right. Well, that's where I would be if I had to go down there. I want to be there.
So the birds here, they fly north for winter instead of south, because the north end of us is what's close to the equator.
Listen, I have another question, because I had an argument with somebody about this. Is it true that in Australia, when the water go down the drain, it spin the other direction?
No, that's rubbish.
Okay, so I know to tell me Radical Latino we're having an argument about that.
No, that's
I
rubbish.
want to tell him, put him in his place.
And also let them know, please, because I've been asked this question too. You know, when I was moving here, what are you moving to Australia for? You're just gonna go down there and get a pet kangaroo? No, we don't have them roaming the streets, and nobody owns a koala. Okay.
Oh my God.
But the thing is, you can encounter them in certain regions or certain areas.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of the kangaroo encounters here are rarely in the city. It can happen, but rarely in the city. More out in bush and rural areas. And you know how in America they have the people hitting deer.
Yeah.
You, you have those types of accidents here with
Wow.
kangaroos. Of course, we have very many different species and sizes of kangaroos. So, you know, it could be minor damage to complete write-off.
So Damiluz wasn't here when we started at the beginning. So could you address her statement to alleviate her fears?
Majority European populations. Well, the thing is, what I've realized is with most of the world, people have moved on. When I came here and I was expecting, because I'm moving here from America, right? So I'm expecting to having to defend my situation based on, you know, heritage, color, orientation, etc. Where you're stepping at. And people were like, dude, we don't deal with that crap here. You're not back in America. You know what I mean? Like I heard someone explaining to someone that they were in gay marriage. And the person says, no, you're in a marriage. You don't have to define marriage. A marriage is a marriage. And very quickly I went, wow, this is different. You know, the stigmas and the little things that people try to find to pull it apart and create division. Nah. And like I said, if someone does step out of line and make a racist remark, the person being attacked rarely has to open their mouth.
Yeah.
5 other people, 10 other people will jump in and go, mate, that's not appropriate. Get the fuck out of here. You know, so Aussies have each other's backs.
Yeah.
You know, and like I was saying earlier on about the crab in the bucket, you know, and Aussies also look out for the underdog, I guess is the best way to put it. The crabs in the bucket mentality. You have a big pile of buckets. When people used to go crab hunting, you know, and come home with a big bucket of crabs, and the crabs are so busy struggling, looking out for themselves, but the more they struggle, the more to the bottom they sink.
Yeah.
If crabs were smart, they're actually very equipped to lock their claws and help each other. If they work together, they could all escape. But because of their selfishness and the me, they all meet their demise. They all end up in the pot.
Yeah.
You know, so unfortunately, mankind has a lot more evolving to do.
So would you tell Damiluz that if she came to Australia, she could like relax?
A colonial history. Yes, it has a colonial history, but we moved on. Britain has a colonial history. The Spanish, the French, the Dutch, everybody started off with colonial history. But when you go to those countries now, everybody is integrated, everybody is intermarried, everybody is universally enjoying the same things without the stigmas of you're black, get back, you're brown, stick around, you're white, you're all right. Now, I haven't felt that here. I have not been called out of my name or had to deal with racism like I did in America. I have not experienced it. And I've been here nearly 20 years.
So your experience being in America and different parts of America, you have experienced more racism here than you have been in Australia for almost 20 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
I remember when I first moved to America, I was walking home from work one night and somebody driving past in a car that I'd never known or encountered called out, you know, the N-word. That was in Alexandria, Virginia, trying to get home from work.
Wow.
you know, and you just come across pockets of madness. And I mean, when you go down south, that's a whole other thing.
Hmm.
No, I've been through remote parts of Australia, and people have not hurled any form of prejudice or hostility at me.
So Shelton,
Yeah.
you ever stop think maybe say them no say you're black?
Oh, please.
Listen,
Look at the
maybe
nose.
they
Look
haven't
at the
noticed.
nose. Look at the nose. When they see the hair, they know it's black. Oh, come on now. I could mention a few other things, but I'm not an exhibitionist. But no,
Hey,
seriously,
that may be why you're more popular. Who knows?
that too. But it's funny to see how the British, especially, were the most brutal. They had the military force for such a tiny country. They were the ones that had the military might, I guess, coupled with Ireland and Scotland and everything that they owned. But they made sure to go around and conquer. So the size of their army was worldwide.
Hmm.
But if the British, who I would say was the most brutal of the colonizers, because they allowed other people to go in and colonize, and then they come in and steal from the other colonizers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, but when you go to Britain, I'm not saying that prejudice doesn't exist there. I'm sure it does, but it's people our age and older that are holding on to that. When you look at the younger generation, they don't give a crap. And that's what I've found here with the passage of time, Australia's younger generation and their youth. Australians travel a lot.
Hmm.
Americans don't. Kiwis, the people in New Zealand travel a lot. I mean, people were talking about coming back from the vacation here and there, or they go to Europe, or they travel through the South Pacific region, go to different islands, go to Fiji, go to Vanuatu. What else is nearby? Singapore, Malaysia, Japan. I mean, people here travel.
So what would you say to Damilu's statement here?
What's that? So pretend it. I'm not saying that it did not happen, but if you were here earlier on, Australia has made several public outcries and attempts and apologies to the Aboriginal people, including since I've been here.
Hmm.
Okay,
And
so
Kitunde also he has a stake. Well, he has a question here.
has that apology been just accepted by all? No. But the ones who want to be progressive, well, at least they're making an effort. They've outreached their hand. Let's reach our hand back out to them. Not everyone is, oh, yeah, well, it's fine. Let's all get over it now. No, you still have some people that are sitting there. But if you want to stew in anger and bitterness your whole life and make that your existence, that is your choice. Is there a huge population of Australian Aboriginals, or are they in reservations? I would say that the Aboriginals, there are some that choose to still remain in what I would consider more remote circumstances, but they do have the free choice to integrate, to have the same schooling, to have the same housing within city communities outside of the townships that their elders may have originally been a part of. They're free to move around.
Mm. And Lily Naspori has a statement here. How would you answer that?
Discriminated at a restaurant when they had family dinner in Sydney. Well, yeah, you probably will come across, like I said, pockets of bullshit because you're dealing with human beings.
Hmm.
But okay, that's in a restaurant where maybe I would say that's considered an isolated situation. If someone did that in a public open space, they
Yeah.
would be squashed like a bug.
Mm. So
Yeah,
it's
so
not
I'm
so.
not saying I'm not saying that there aren't problems here. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's no
Yeah.
perfect place on the planet. But when you look at the larger consensus, people here will not tolerate that crap.
Hmm. So in other words, you're not trying to say that Australia is some kind of racial utopia, but
No,
saying that it's not as heavy as things are here in the United States.
exactly. America has allowed that pot to sit on the back burner on a low flame and stew and stew and stew and stew. And what we see now is the boil over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, the reparations that have been made to the Aboriginal communities, the problem now that came out of that is the government made such an outreach to the Aboriginals and made programs and certain things available to Aboriginals that
Mhm.
the European Australians couldn't get. So the European Australians started complaining. Now you're treating them better than us.
Well, that's just, sibling
But
rivalry syndrome.
somebody is always going to want to be the victim,
Yeah.
you know? So, but no, like I said, I have seen the ongoing efforts. It's not that they said, okay, let's just say this and get it over with. That wasn't the attitude at all. They
Mhm.
have said it, they have repeated it. Every time they have their National Australia Day, you know, of
Mhm.
course, some people say, oh, that's the day that they invade. That's invasion day. Again, is your glass half full or half empty? But every Australia Day, when they're amidst their own formalities, they mention with great respect coming here and the existence of the Aboriginal people, and talk about with their ongoing efforts to provide assistance to make sure that these people are treated as equals and not less than. Yeah, big
Yeah.
step from how things started. Huge,
Well, I,
huge, huge.
I have to agree with Damiluz here when she says, I guess she's talking about here, like all of this racial business is designed to stir people up and create, division.
Of course,
I would agree with that. And she
if
also
they can.
said that, I guess she's talking about Australia, that it's still, at the end of the day, from her perspective, she's saying it's still stolen land,
Of
which,
course, it is.
yeah,
But so is the country that we're from. So is all of the countries in the Caribbean.
well,
So is
exactly.
everywhere. The colonizers didn't just target one or two places. Man, they got their claws into everything.
Yeah, like most of my friends here are from, Latin America, mostly Dominican, Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
Long story how I fell down that rabbit hole, but I've met some cool people. So,
Just, just because you look like all of them.
well,
You look at
like
good and go, you
fellow
look at good and
Caribbean,
go, what the hell is he? What's going on here?
as a fellow Caribbean, when I hear them having their conversations, having grown up in Jamaica and our society, there's a lot of things that I can identify with because I've been through similar situations or we have similar dynamics,
Yeah.
even though the language is different. But yeah, so I mean, like, I think it's really hard living here in the United States to get out of that bubble because
Yeah. And that's
things
that's a
are
perfect
so
description. It is a bubble.
yeah, and like the Caribbean, all of us, at the end of the day, which I keep saying is that all of us are dealing with the consequences of that colonialism experience because like Dominican Republic, for example, that was ground zero.
Yeah.
That was ground zero. So you could say Australia is stolen lands, but then, yeah, by that same token, that applies to our countries in the Caribbean too, because with the exception of Dominica and St. Vincent and Trinidad, you
Yeah.
can't find an intact native community in any of our islands.
Yeah.
Even though, yes, we might have, ancestry because the one common denominator that we had in like the big islands, the Greater Antilles, is that there were people who escaped and ran off to the mountains. So, for
Yeah.
example, in Jamaica, we had the Maroons,
The
like
maroon.
who survived from the Tainos, they ran away with the Maroons to the mountains.
Yeah.
And you have the same pattern that happened in Dominican Republic and Haiti, Cuba. I think out of all the islands, the survival rate, the big islands, the biggest survival rate was in Puerto Rico because at the time, once Spain found out about Mexico and Peru, they more or less left us alone in the Caribbean, and that's why the English were able to take Jamaica away in 1655.
Yeah.
So in Puerto Rico, they were kind of left alone, so the population had time to recover somewhat. So when you look at these DNA videos in the Caribbean, Puerto Ricans tend to have the highest, Taino DNA percentages out of everybody,
Yeah.
But none of us, like I said, with the exception of those small islands that were colonized at a much later date,
Yeah.
you can't find any like community. You
Yeah.
can say, oh,
Yeah.
these are Caribs, these are Tainos.
Face people. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, so we're all of our islands are stolen land, and it's how do you reconcile that fact? It's not an easy thing to deal with because I mean it was a horrible experience. There's no denying
Yes.
that. But at the end of the day, it's like, look, you have to pick up and move on.
Yeah. I think
So
America's
we
thing
have to do
is,
what we can now.
even after America sort of overcame abolishment of slavery, creating some level of reparations and allowing the reservation areas for the Native Americans, what never diminished there was the us and them
Yeah,
mentality.
yeah,
You know, it's the us and them mentality. Now, the other places, they realize, hey, if we're going to integrate, we have to really integrate. And that's where their success has come in. They
hmm
said, we're going to really drop this crap and make it equal. We have to do it, not just on paper, we have to put it into practice.
Well, Australia made a conscious, concerted effort to make.
Conscious and concerted effort. Like I said, as much as you'll still find a few Aboriginal leaders walking around saying the same thing of yesteryear, yeah, you'll still find it. Well, if it wasn't for this, this wouldn't have happened, and this wouldn't have happened, and this wouldn't have gone down that way, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the Europeans came here. It was an ugly story, as it has been everywhere else. But you know what? This country is now in a different and probably a better position as a result of that. And
Yeah,
like I said, they have made not one, not two, not a few, but several ongoing efforts to make sure that that is repeated annually, every single Australian day when they have their ceremony, like their Independence Day celebration. When you see the amount of tribute that's put into the Aboriginal community,
yeah,
unbelievable. It could bring tears to your eyes.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
so,
they've
and
a
the
long
thing
way.
is, you have people of not a large majority of them, because again, the people are of the age who would be in politics and so on and so forth, especially the older people our age and older. Not a lot of those wanted to be involved. But when you look at younger Australian politics, some of those people have Aboriginal bloodlines in them.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Just in my local council, there is one person who is very obviously Aborigine, and there are people who are of Greek and Asian and Vietnamese, and you
Mhm.
just, some people you look at them and, like I say, some people you can spot their nationality. Some people you look at them and you go, well, whoa, this one's got a little bit of everything going on here, and I think that's great. I think it's great. But America never got the plug out of their system with the us and them. Yeah, we'll free them, but as long as they stay over there, we'll be fine.
Mhm.
They never properly accepted, mentally or otherwise, integration. And not only that, every time they saw a pocket group of Afro Americans succeeding, they'd go in and they'd demolish that.
Yeah,
How dare they be able to survive under such harsh conditions and then thrive? No, fuck that. Let's go burn that shit down. So
Mhm. So, Shell, have you ever been mistaken for an Aborigine?
Not really. I don't think my features are Aboriginal. Aborigines have very strong brow lines and very defined,
So, there's a very distinct look.
very distinct look. But like I said, as time has passed by, you come across people now that are mixed. You can see that they obviously have Aboriginal features, but they're diluted, they're watered down.
Yeah. Well, well, Mr. Shelton, I want to thank you for coming on here. I know it's very difficult for you, living in the future.
Yeah, it's now 2:30 here on Sunday, and I have an appointment I should be at, so I'm gonna get ready to run. But no, this has been great. This
Yeah.
is a wonderful opportunity to sort of share my experience and my, you know, things that I've seen from an outsider perspective. It's been very, very amazing. Very, very, very amazing. It's very, very enlightening experience.
Well, I'm glad that you had the chance to share with everyone because like I'm constantly talking with people. I mean, my little group here, here on
Mm,
chat, we're a little tribe, you
yeah,
know,
that's cool. That's awesome.
and so it's like there's the us and then there's the them.
Yeah,
The them are in a very dark place mentally,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
And I'd like people to understand, even some of those people that have more closed minds, that things things can be much better here in the United States than what we are. I
Yeah,
think a lot of us think, this is the be all and end all. And a lot of us have also fallen into a place of hopelessness,
yeah,
thinking, well, it'll never be any good. And then we kind of project our experience out into the rest of the world. So part of the problem that we have when it comes to communicating, even amongst ourselves, is having that mentality that our perspective is the be all and end all, and it's
yeah,
shared everywhere and agreed on everywhere. And I try to tell people that's not the case.
yeah.
So,
Exactly. That.
I was trying to get you in on that live stream, but you had business you were taking care of.
Uh, as a black foreigner moving to America, once I became a citizen
Hmm.
and I started voting, I noticed that a lot of Afro Americans that I knew, work colleagues, friends, weren't interested in voting, had never voted, not even registered to vote. I'm like, why? Oh, why bother? It's a fixed system. Well, I
Yeah,
think we've proved that now.
yeah,
Okay, this last election proved that no, it's not a fixed system. You
yeah,
know, but if had we continued to be that lax about it, it could have fallen into being a fixed system.
yeah.
You know,
I think,
so,
I think the thing here with the United States, all of this propaganda that we see in the media, I think it's specifically designed to break people's spirits
of course,
so that they don't even
it's
try. Like,
all mind manipulation, all of it.
yeah. So the thing that I want everyone to come away with is that not to despair, not to give up. Like there is hope, and I think it will help if we saw examples of other developed nations and
Yeah,
what they have.
yeah,
Because I think the other side of the equation is that we are deliberately kept in a bubble.
yeah, yeah,
We don't know what it's like in other countries. We don't know what it's like in England and France and
yeah,
the Netherlands and all these other places,
yeah.
or Australia. We don't know, and so I think we don't demand more
Yeah,
of our elected officials
yeah,
than we should be demanding more. We take politics over here like it's a sports game. I have my team and I want my team to win,
yeah.
but I'm not going to ask them for anything because I don't think
And the
that
through,
are
through. Okay, I voted at the general election so I can sit back and relax. No, you support and buffer what you did and achieve in the general elections by making sure that you vote at the midterm elections and so on. You know, you can't drop the ball. Okay, home run, we won, and you just walk away and go home. No, you have to make sure that you stay in the mindset of every voice matters. And to know that every voice matters, you have to believe that every voice matters.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, all right.
We need to know. So, Shell, it's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to when we can see each other in person.
Yes. We have to work on that.
And by the way, just for the record, I'm not the one.
As soon as COVID calms the hell down, yes,
yeah.
I'm overdue for a visit anyway.
Of course. And just for the record, I'm not the one that broke your toy back in 1910. It was like that. It was like that when I went in your room. It was already like that. I didn't do anything. Listen, I'll buy you another one. I'll buy you one. Even though it wasn't me that broke it, you know, I just feel bad.
All right, me gone.
All right. Take it easy.
Good talking to you, and thank you for having me on your show.
You're welcome. Thank you for agreeing to to be here. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Take care.
All right, man. Peace.
All right. Bye.
Okay, so everybody, thank you so much for joining us here on this our first edition of BBC TV. And remember, you know what BBC stands for? Beautiful brown color. There you go. So it's me, Mr. BBC, aka Truth Teacher 2007. Thank you. Tell everybody on Fighter Complexes Live that I said hi. Listen, I need to get sleep, all right? I can't go over there because I know they're going to probably be over there until like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. But tell everybody, give them a shout out for me, and I will see you guys on the next installation of Mr. BBC TV, all right? Peace out.